Okay, if you can't use Workbench, that's fine, because Workbench is a user interface. But if you can write program to do it, then Workbench is nothing. So you don't need to worry about it. So now we will come back to our program here. So the first things I use the get pass is because when you are doing MySQL connection, you need to input your password. So if you don't want someone to see the password, you need to use get pass, import get pass. So from here, and later on, but it will when you use the Python program in somewhere, not in Spider, because Spider you still can see your password. But if you are putting somewhere like a server or run in web, then someone can't see your password. So then we say from MySQL.connector import connector. Then we want to show some error message, so we say the errors. Then now here is we say connect. We set a name called connect. So the host name is the host, local host. And if you want to check this one, you can open your Workbench. Then you can read, you can check the local host, the name of your host. But if you can't open Workbench, that's fine. Then here, from here, we say user input. So we use input. We don't hard record your username and password inside your Python program. So we use input. Then here, the password, we use get pass. So once you type your password from somewhere outside the Spider, then you just see, normally you just see a start appears. So all the connection we say is as a DB. So next one, if you want to do something about your database, then we can do it. So now we print the connection. If there is an error, we say print error here. So after that, we say db.close. So because we declare here is a db, so now we say db close. Just once you finish your program, you just close your database. So we can have this one. We can run this one. So now here you can see it asks you to input your username. So my username is root. Then give a password. Here you can still see my password. But then after that, we can see when it is successfully connected, then there's a message appears here. So which means our database connection is fine. So you can try yours to see if there is a successful message appears here. Any problems? No problems. Okay, if no problems, then we continue to the next one. So now this one, we almost use the same thing from the beginning to the database connection. Then after that, we want to create a database. So here is the script you just saw before. Then we just put this one into here. So the script, we put this one, assign it to a variable. So we ask our Python program to do the MySQL script for us. So now we say create a database. So now we create a database, which names test database. So then we ask it to do the cursor, then ask the cursor to execute this one. So this one is actually to put the create a database and the database name here. Then we need to add the db.commit. So the commit will ask the database to do the change. So the actual change will be here. So if you don't have this one, then the database, it just do a work, then forget it. So the database inside it doesn't change. So now here we can, after the commit, we can ask the Python to give us a message, say the database has been created successfully. So now we try to run it. the same. You ask the program asks you to put the username and password. So then it says database created successfully. So how do we know it? Then we go back to our actual workbench. Then we can have a look. Now you can see my test database appears on the bottom. So this one is just created. So if you can't open your workbench, that's fine. We can do another test. So here is you can see it visually, but if you can't check it, then we can do this one. Oh, this one is the same database test. So we just make the connection using this one. But this time, the first time we do the connection, we don't declare any tables. But for this one, we can say we just use test the database. So maybe we just use this one to do our test. So now here we ask the database connection to do the test the database. So if it's successful, then it will show some connection here. If not, then it will show some errors here. So now we can run it, then give a username and password. So you can see it's successfully connected. So if you can't see you created a database from Workbench, you can try this one, then see if it's successful. Okay, now we continue our database manipulation. So for this one, I start, so for the first part, they are all the same, just for the database connection. So this one, here I need to remind you, if you say the database is called test, then you should have the test actually inside your database. Otherwise, you will get error. So once you decided your database, then you can create a table. So for this one is to create a table. So now here is the table. I can explain. So inside the tables, I call the table name class. So this is the table name. Then inside the table, I have a student ID, which is an integer. Then it's called the primary key. Primary key is the key index for database. Whenever you want to collect the data or you want to retrieve data from the database, it will work from the primary key. Then the next one is the first name. Then the first name is a character, so I use variable character here. Then I give the length of 50s. Sometimes you need to think of it's not Chinese character. Sometimes if the student is from Hindu, Indonesia, they have a very long names. So the character you need to think of international names. Then the last name, I also give a 50 as the length. Then the date of birth here. So now we can do this one. Then after that we say show tables, describe a class. So the show tables is actually from here. So I ask the cursor to do the execute. So then it will will show the tables. So here is to actually I execute the tables. So it is just the same as you use Workbench. So when you open the Workbench, you say create a table, then you click on the apply. It will show a bunch of script. Then that's the things we write here. So then after that, we ask the result to fetch all records. So then we will show things here, if we have any. But here we created the table, but we don't have any data insert into the table. So now we can run it to see. Before I run it, I need to check if I have the database called test. Yes, I have. Because I already have the class table, so I don't want to repeat it. So I maybe change it to student. So I change the table name into student. So then I give it a run. Then you need to give your username and password. If you don't set your username, it's always root. So now it says student ID here. So everything we created is shown here. So now if we go back to the workbench, we can check if we have the, I call it, do a refresh. So I should have a student here. So you can, if you go back to your workbench, you can see the student table has been created here. So that's the way you want to create a table. Now let's have a look at the next one. If you don't want the table, you want to delete it, then the way you delete it is called drop table. So now we can drop the table we just created. It's called student. So still we use the database called test. Then we want to drop the table we just created. So we say student. So now we try to delete the tables we just created. So we do this one, then we change it to drop tables. So the student table should be able to drop. So we run it. Now we go back to the workbench and give a refresh. Then we check. So inside the test database, our student table has gone. So it's dropped. So that's the way if you want to delete your tables, you need to use drop tables, then give the table's name. Whatever you created the table name, you don't want it, then put the name here. So now we want to actually insert data into our database. So now I have the connections is here. Then I want to insert into the class. So I give all the field here, student ID, first name, last name, and date of birth. Then the value here is for variables here. So from the variable here, it will look at your actual value from the list here. So now we have the 429 students' name and first name, last name, and the date of birth here. So we can actually use insert into the class. So now we run it. The problem is I already have this one. Yeah, see this one. It says duplicate entries from 5 because I already done it. So now I can put this one into my database. So for that, I can change them into, because it's a primary key, so you cannot use duplicate keys. So we change the number to a different set. You should be fine because you don't have the things I have done before. So now let's do. So now it says 6 record inserted. So now I have the data insert into my database. So from the class, I can actually do now you can see I use the script language to show the list from my workbench. So now I have these are all the data I already have. Then I change that into 11 to 16. So then these are added into my tables. So for the for the script language, you can actually play with that. You can say select stuff from class. Then we say where date of birth equals to, yeah, there's a 2001 and the 10 and 01. We can actually select something from your data. So now what I said here is I just want the date of birth is in 2001, October the 1st. So then we can run it. Now we just have 2 shows up. So the full field requirement. So you can also do this one inside your Python script. So that's the way of, if you want to select something from your data, that's the way of doing it. Now, when we insert something into our data, we sometimes want to delete it. So here is the way we delete the data from here. So for example, here I want to delete from the class where the first name is Mark. So I just want to delete someone called Mark. So then I just run it. I didn't show up any message, so we need to go back to our workbench. Then we select everything from class, then give it a run. Then we check if we still have Mark in here. There shouldn't. Oh, there's a Mark here. Wow, what's wrong with that? First name is Mark. It didn't work on the time. So run it again. Test. I make a mistake here. So I think you will all need to think of. I think yeah, it's a test mark. For this program, it doesn't actually run the result. Test from class. Class. This one doesn't do the delete. Why? Never mind. So let's go to the next. I'll sort it out later. Then we will do next one to delete a table. So if you want to delete a table, then we say drop database here. So we try now. This one is to delete your database. Let me check if I still have my test database. Yeah, I still have that one. So then let's run this one to try to delete the test database. So then it says database deleted. So that's successfully run. So if we go back to our workbench, then do a refresh. So the test database has gone. So So that's all about the database we can do. For the delete part, I just leave you to sort it out. So next time, tell me what's wrong with this one. I can't find any wrong with this one, but it doesn't do my DB commit. So it didn't actually do the deletion. So that's for all the database for this class. So so we finished today. If you have any question, then you stay. Otherwise, you are free to go.